over 40 who are pulling for me. In actuality, they're pulling for themselves. I've got to be successful to show them that if you're 40 and above 40, they can use the word potential. And in the end, that's what it's all about. It can happen. I didn't come back for the Cadillac in the window, one big payday. I came back to be heavyweight champ of the world.
Part of George Foreman's odyssey in this comeback, up and down the scale, Larry Merchant.
Yes, his first return fight, he weighed 267. Here he is 3 years later, 263. You've heard of the diet formula, what is it, Slim Fast? I think
Fast.
George has developed Slim Slow.
George's comment on the subject: when he was a boy, he was hungry. Now that he can afford it, he wants to have food. Thus, scenes like yesterday's weigh-in.
George Foreman weighs in at 263 pounds.
It was far and away the biggest moment of an otherwise uneventful weigh-in for both of these heavyweight bouts. And now, Adilson Rodrigues, the Brazilian fighter whose biggest public appearance in the United States prior to this was a second-round knockout loss to Evander Holyfield, comes into the ring.
You have to feel that George Foreman allowed himself to be matched with this man because he comes out of his own. George Foreman's central casting. Foreman figures he doesn't take a punch that well, he doesn't punch that well, he doesn't move that well. He's got the whole package, but he has beaten a few recognizable names in the heavyweight division: Bone Crusher Smith and Quick Tillis, which is a lot more than any of Foreman's earlier opponents have done.
A look at Rodrigues' record, and of course you saw his one other large asset preceding him into the ring, the man in his corner, Angelo Dundee, who was the trainer in the opposite corner when George Foreman first lost a professional fight back in Zaire in 1974. What will Adilson Rodrigues have to do against Foreman and vice versa? Ray Leonard's tip of the night.
Oh, Jim, this is elementary. For George Foreman, first and foremost, he must establish that strong jab because it's like a bomb, because he's so heavy-handed. And George must use that 263 pounds of flesh to out-hustle and out-muscle Rodrigues. Just beat him to the punch, make it a physical fight. Now, Foreman hates movement because he can't get set. So for Rodrigues, he must make George Foreman work. Make him work every round, every minute of every round, until George is no more. Because this heat here becomes a factor also. A good matchup.
Okay, all right. And we widened the camera lens out just a little bit now to make room for the next man into the ring, 41-year-old George Foreman.
Humming to himself, and he will be greeted by a great cheer. Everybody likes a jolly fat man.
Well, one thing people love about him, you saw right there, the highest knockout percentage in the history of all heavyweight champions, 91.2% knockouts. He had extremely heavy hands in his first incarnation as a heavyweight champ, and that's one element of his game that has not changed a bit. 20 knockouts in 21 fights since the comeback began in 1987.
My eyes not here. Okay, I got you.
HBO market research in anticipation of booking this bout demonstrates that George Foreman is, among women in the United States, far and away the most popular boxer. More popular than the man who's number 2 on the list, Sugar Ray Leonard. Sorry, Ray.
Oh, that's okay. I take my hat up to George.
Well, he's been making the talk show circuit for the last 2 years, and I have to think that has something to do with it. And now the crowd responds to George Foreman.
You know, George is a man on a mission. I mean, although he's 40 years or 41 years old, he's out there to win the title back.
I figure Foreman is a sort of combination of William Perry and Nolan Ryan and Roseanne Barr.
And there are people out there that lives vicariously through George.
The most remarkable thing about Foreman really is the transformation of his personality and character. he reveled in being another Sonny Liston when he was a young man, a real angry, uncooperative human being.
66 victories, only 2 losses in his career, to Muhammad Ali in Zaire, and 2 years later to Jimmy Young in San Juan, Puerto Rico. It was at that point that he had a religious experience and became a Bible-thumping preacher. In Foreman's corner, one of the greatest figures in the history of the sport.
The great Archie Moore. Foreman said of him that he makes you feel like a green plum in a tree, not ripe to fall off. And of course, the reason for that is Archie Moore fought well into his 40s. A great, great man, an original character. Look at that record. When I was a sports writer in Philadelphia, Jim, he used to write 8, 10-page letters to me from San Diego.
Filled with wit and wisdom. Now he whispers that wit and wisdom to George Foreman, who enters the ring 9 years older than his opponent. And Rodrigues is no spring chicken by heavyweight standards. Foreman with advantages in height. He's 44 pounds heavier and has 7 inches more reach.
And the punch stat numbers, for whatever they're worth, because these numbers were garnered in a fight that Foreman knocked out Cooney, while Rodrigues was knocked out by Holyfield. But you saw that Rodrigues made a bad mistake against Holyfield. He was too active. He has to be less active in this fight. And there you see their jabs. Rodrigues can throw a jab, and Angelo Dundee wants him to keep throwing the jab and keep moving.
The rules are those of the Nevada State Boxing Commission. 3 judges scoring on the 10-point must. No standing 8 count. You can be saved by the bell in the last round only. By far the most significant rule by our lights for these bouts. The 3 knockdown rule is in effect. Now let's go up to ring announcer Chuck Hull for the pre-fight introductions.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Caesars Palace Sports Arena, where tonight Don King Productions, in association with Caesars Palace, presents The Road Back, an evening of world-class boxing. These bouts are sanctioned by the Nevada State Athletic Commission, Dr. James Nave, chairman. The commissioners at ringside tonight are Dr. Elias Ghanem, Dwayne Ford, Jay Nady, and Luther Mack. The executive director of the Nevada State Athletic Commission is Chuck Minker. The officials assigned by that commission for the next bout of the evening, the judges will be Bill Graham, Dave Moretti, and Jerry Roth. The timekeeper is Mike Lachella. Counting at the knockdowns, Al Bisick. The attending physicians at ringside, Doctors Flip Pomansky, James Game, and William Berliner. And your referee is Carlos Padilla. This is the co-main event of the evening. 10 rounds of boxing in the heavyweight division. Introducing, in the blue corner, fighting out of Sao Paulo, Brazil, weighing in at 219 pounds, with a professional record of 36 wins, 3 defeats with 26 KOs. He is the South American heavyweight champion. Ladies and gentlemen, here is Jose Adilson Rodrigues. And in the blue corner, from Marshall, Texas, weighing an even 263 pounds. His professional record consists of 66 wins, 2 defeats, with 62 KOs. He is a former heavyweight champion of the world, George Foreman.
Okay.
That robe looks like it could cover Albania.
Okay, Rodrigues. George, you were already given instructions in your respective dressing room. Any question?
None.
Okay, seconds, come out fighting.
George stooped while the referee was giving instructions to fight with his height.
Rodrigues has to fight this fight like a gambler with loaded dice who refuses to bet. He's got to be very conservative and try to stretch it out.
Wonder if that's what Dundee was whispering to him there as they prepared to move to the center of the ring. Of course, the robe has already covered something here that's bigger than Albania, Larry. It brought him into the ring. Rodrigues looked terrific for much of the first round against Holyfield. Then he got rocked with a right hand in the second round and went to sleep. And he initiates most of the action to begin against Foreman. George will take his time.
I don't think Rodrigues is going to be too effective being mobile. I think his best bet is pretty much not to move as much and try to land some stiff punches. On the move, he doesn't have as much leverage behind his punches. You know, it's a lot of slapping blows.
Well, in the early going, he's been pretty accurate with the jab. He's gone to the body a couple of times. That's not hard to find. George Rodrigues' body isn't all that hard to find either.
Well, George Foreman is trying to get that jab off. I tell you, his defense is very, very unique. Reminds me a lot of Ken Norton, although George covers up a lot more body.
George likes to deny that he has any particular strategy in the ring. He'll say that that defensive posture is just to make his opponent think a little bit. But it proved effective against Jerry Cooney, at least in the second round when he knocked Cooney out. And it presents an unusual picture to an opponent. George crossing his big arms in front of his body a lot.
The way a man can connect with George Foreman is to throw double left hooks to the body, to the head, or to the head, and to the body. Because, again, the way George protects himself, his defense. While he protects one part of the body, the other body is exposed.
George, for the most part, has been a little short with the jab. Rodrigues has landed several to the left side of George's face.
No, step up. Step up. Step up.
George is so economical in the ring. I mean, he doesn't really waste anything, although I don't think he can afford to waste anything at this particular weight.
Put it up.
But he takes his time and he lands those big punches, like the jab there.
Okay, no.
And as one Kevin Rooney pointed out, and I think it's a good observation, exceptionally calm. He looks as though he's engaged in some accounting business rather than boxing.
Put it up.
That was a good round, I thought, for Rodrigues. Let's see if he can keep it up. George Foreman stands up in his corner. He said he isn't wed to the idea. He just feels more comfortable that way. And watching this fight in his locker room, the once and perhaps future champion.
Round two begins. George Foreman in the blue trunks. Adilson Rodrigues of Brazil in the white. Rodrigues at one point had risen to become the #3 contender in the eyes of two of the three world governing bodies. That was prior to his second round knockout at the hands of Evander Holyfield.
You know, George Foreman does some weight training for his arms, and it bulges up his arms to protect that body, that midsection.
George seems mildly amused at the moment by all of Rodrigues' footwork. He's sort of dancing lightly around after him.
Well, he's taking his time.
Okay, bring it up, bring it up.
And he gets an appreciative chuckle from the ringside crowd
Hold it.
for the daintiness with which he set up that posture to deliver a punch.
He's very relaxed. I just don't like that hand down. He drops our right hand, George Foreman does. And I don't know whether or not Rodrigues sees that or can do that.
Hold it, hold it.
Throw the left hook.
Body punches by Foreman. There's already a little bit of soft redness around the right eye of Adilson Rodrigues, and Foreman landed 19 punches in round 1. According to punch stat computations, 17 of them were jabs. Foreman trying to come with the uppercut. Angelo Dundee says the biggest mistake you can make against Foreman is to lean over against him and give him a chance to fire the uppercut into your face.
Well, by being a big man, Foreman normally overpowers his opponents. He gets more leverage punching down as opposed to punching upward. The game plan for Rodrigues and Angelo Dundee, I'm sure, is to make George Foreman work. And good uppercut by George.
Foreman twice coming up and under with the left hand. And remember, when you're watching George Foreman, you're watching a man who has been known to knock opponents out with glancing blows. His hands are so heavy that what becomes a knockout punch doesn't always look like one, and Rodrigues goes down. Case in point.
Well, that's what Rodrigues is here for.
He's done his job. 2 minutes and 39 seconds of the second round, and with a series of blows begun by a pair of left-hand uppercuts, George Foreman puts away Adilson Rodrigues.
I didn't think George Foreman was hitting that hard when he first made his initial comeback. I figured it was just arm punches, but it's apparent that the man still has power.
Unbelievable power, Ray. As I said, they don't look like knockout punches. He hits you with glancing blows, and the next thing you know, a guy is in serious trouble.
Well, the way he starts off, he throws the jab, the right hand, and his grazing right hand. That shows how much power. A nice, picture-perfect left foot by George Foreman. But I also believe the lighter George Foreman is, the better he is. He throws better punches, better combinations with a lot more accuracy.
You'll play hell convincing him of that.
I doubt that very seriously. And here's another shot. George Foreman, wherever he lands a punch, it's able to hurt his opponent. Rodrigues backs away, slightly dazed. There's the right hand. Then he comes up with that beautiful left hook.
So at 2 minutes 39 seconds of the second round, Adilson Rodrigues has his second round knockout loss against a major American heavyweight contender, and I guess that's what we have to call Foreman now.
I expected more from Rodrigues, but apparently George Foreman has much more to offer than we are led to believe, or myself.
Total punches in the bout by punch stat computations. And we told you that Foreman landed 19 punches in round 1, but only 2 of them were seen as power punches. The other 17 were jabs. Altogether, he landed 39 punches in the fight, a 60% connect rate. Rodrigues was the busier fighter, but once he was in trouble, he stopped punching and absorbed a lot of punishment from Foreman before going down. Right now, let's go up to ring announcer Chuck Hull for the official decision.
Ladies and gentlemen, the time, 2 minutes, 39 seconds of the second round. The winner by a knockout, the former heavyweight champion of the world, George Foreman.
Well, this should be entertaining. Let's go to Larry Merchant with George Foreman.
George, analyze the fight for us. It shouldn't take you longer than the fight.
Well, it's interesting. Whenever you're in the ring with Angelo Dundee fighters, you're halfway scared anyway because you know he's got some trick up his sleeve.
What did you expect?
I expected a lot of movement, which I got. I expected the guy to cover up a little bit more, Adilson Rodrigues, than he did. I didn't expect a quick knockout because I figured he'd be moving for 4 or 5 rounds. I'd probably get him about the 7th round. But he started trading punches with me a little earlier than I thought he would.
You've been very careful about picking opponents. I'm told that you study tapes carefully before you get in the ring with anybody.
And if they can whip my mother, they don't go.
Well, in that case, did Rodrigues fulfill your expectations of him?
He was a little more punch. He punched a little harder than I thought. I didn't know he would open up with so many punches. He surprised me with that. He'd been here, lost to Holyfield, and he went over and got a good win in Europe. That kind of bothered me because I knew his timing would be there. But other than that, everything went according to plan.
George, you used to fight everything very hard. Everything you did was intense. Now you seem like you're out for a stroll in the ring. Has that helped you in any way?
Well, I fight so often now, and then if you do it often, you get more relaxed. And I know exactly what I can do and what I cannot do, and I don't try to force things that I can't possibly do. Doesn't matter what people say. I just try to be the best fighter I can. And you get older, you know, I'm about 40 or more, and as you get older, you start getting a little more wiser too. Youth and enthusiasm are great, but age and craftiness is really fine for me.
What do you want to do next? What is the next step in this brilliant campaign of yours?
I hope to think that maybe the winner of this fight tonight and the winner of the next fight with Mike Tyson and Tillman, that they'll match us both together. I think the people really deserve to see a true heavyweight fight now.
If the scenario unfolds with Holyfield fighting Douglas in the fall, and then perhaps one of them wants to fight you, is that okay with George Foreman to fight one of them for the heavyweight title?
I would sure love that. If that was the ultimate goal, to fight for the heavyweight championship of the world. When I do that, then I can go back and be a good farmer and whip up my children. They're beating me up now because I can't hit them. They whipping me up. But if I can get that over, I'll just wrestle with my little boys and play basketball and things of that nature.
Just one more thing I want the folks out there to hear from your lips, George. You've got 3 sons named George.
Yeah,
George the First, George the Second, George the Third. Now explain why.
I'm Daddy, then there's George Jr., there's Monk and Big Wheel, and I love them all, but I didn't want one of them to have a great name, and the other would say, why didn't you name me, Dad? So I just decided to start a tribe.
Okay, maybe a George the Fourth is on the way too.
Thank you so much.
And now we're back on the way back to ringside, and Jim and Ray.
Well, Ray Leonard only has one son named Ray, but he has plenty of other credentials to discuss what he just saw. I suppose you'd have to suspect that a few less people are laughing at George Foreman now than was the case 20 minutes ago.
You know what George Foreman is actually doing in America? He's creating marketability and credibility. Forget about who he's fighting. In the fashion that he's able to knock away and do away with his opponents, people start to believe in George Foreman.
Should there be any trepidation at all about the fact that George is 41 years old? Does he really stand to get hurt if he goes up against a Mike Tyson or a Buster Douglas or an Evander Holyfield?
I think someone needs to ask Archibald that same question. Age is in the mind, and I think as long as you take care of your body, George apparently has been preserving his body and his weight, but George does a tremendous job. I'm very impressed.
Does he look to you to be the hardest hitter in the heavyweight division?
No, I still think Mike Tyson and Buster Douglas ranks up there as far as the heavy hitters. But again, Jim, it's deceptive. It doesn't appear like George is hitting hard, but once he hits the guy, he totally paralyzes his opponents.
Well, let's take a look back at second round action, and we'll take a look at the series of punches that led to the knockout.
Well, when George Foreman lands a punch, like it's a grazing right hand, and then he comes back with left hook, that was a lot of power there because he had his whole body, 263 pounds behind that. George Foreman is a big puncher, and it's very hard to gauge whether or not he's the same punch he was as a champion. But here, when he hits his guys, they stand still and they drop.
Let's clarify something you said a few moments ago before we went up to Larry for the ring interview. I think I heard you say that you think George is better when he's lighter, more accurate, more effective with his punches when he's lighter. Did you mean to say better when he's heavier?
Well, well, he's proven me wrong. I think George is quicker when he's lighter. It proved against Jerry Cooney. He threw more punches, combinations, and the accuracy was there. As he gets heavier, he's a little more lethargic, but he's still effective. But I prefer to see a lighter George Foreman if he should face a Mike Tyson.
Indeed, he was about 10 pounds lighter against Cooney than was the case tonight at 263 pounds. And right now, for a look ahead to what might happen in the heavyweight division in the wake of this second-round Foreman knockout of Rodrigues, here is Larry Merchant.
All right, I'm here with those two lovebirds, Don King and Bob Arum, and also with Mr. Henry Gluck, who's the chairman of the board of Caesars. Let me ask you fellas, what do you have planned for Big George next?
Well, I think before we talk about that, I think Henry Gluck has a real momentous announcement that he'd like to make, and then we'll come back to us.
Okay, Henry, what is your momentous announcement?
Well, first of all, the momentous announcement first was to have Don and Bob and Tyson and Foreman all in the ring at the same time. But what they're referring to is we're Cosmo International, big multi-divisional, multi-international firm is building a huge resort, and we're going to be managing that with a Jack Nicklaus designed 27-hole golf course, and it'll be a Caesars Canyon resort and a Caesars Canyon golf course with a tennis center for 2,000 seats and many, many attractions. We're very proud of that, and it's a big evening for us in this first announcement.
Thank you. And you thought we didn't have commercials on HBO.
Yeah, you understand, because this really leads in to what we're going to do. If Mike comes through his fight that's coming up.
A very small if.
Well, I don't know.
Well,
yeah.
Before.
Right.
But he's going to be ready.
Right.
He's going to be ready.
Then what we'd like to do is to come back here in September and do it again. Another doubleheader with George against a top 10 opponent and Mike against the top 10 opponent. We'd like to do it here at Caesars Palace because it's truly the home of champions.
Don, in the event that the Douglas Holyfield fight comes off at a hotel in this area, and you happen to be a part of that promotion, does this mean that your love affair with Bob will be brief and over?
Absolutely not. I think that what Bob and I are doing now is finding out that working together works and establishing a dialogue and communication that enables us to find out what our weaknesses and strengths are, and we complement each other's strengths and strongly help support the weaknesses. So we keep working together.
All right, explain in your words, in 10,000 words or less, of 8 syllables or less, what is the phenomenon of George Foreman?
George Foreman is like a Rip Van Winkle fight. He went to sleep for 10 years, and out of that hiatus, George has come back awesome and devastating, more so than he was before, because now he has a personality to go along with the devastation and the power that he had wreaked before when he was wreaking havoc in the heavyweight division. George is something that makes every man over 40 have a vicarious pleasure in seeing that life begins at 40, and he's the true personification of it.
How would a Harvard man put it, Bob?
George Foreman, simply put, is the best heavyweight in the world. I don't care if he's 42, I don't care if he's 22, he is the best heavyweight in the world.
Now that's the question on that. That's the one thing that we don't agree on, but we said they got a chance to find out. That's what we can get together and settle it.
But also, he's come back such a wonderful person. His humanity, his decency shines through, and that's what enamors him to the public. Not only is he a great, great fighter, but he is a wonderful, wonderful person, a warm human being, and I think everybody out there in America sees that.
Thank you, gentlemen. Do you two guys at ringside see that?
Well, my first question to Ray is, can anything good come to boxing as a result of Bob Arum and Don King working together? Does that put you at pause just a little bit?
The resurrection of George Foreman makes boxing a lot nicer and more acceptable. George Foreman is a breath of fresh air. I want to say that.
All right, and you give credit to Arum and King for having created the circumstances under which George can be seen in this particular forum, I take it.
George Foreman is a breath of fresh air.
Ever the diplomat, Ray Leonard, who does his boxing deals through an independent authority, Mike Trainer. Well, Mr. Arum claims that George is the best heavyweight alive. Do you think he really believes that?
Well, I guess by promoting the George Foreman fight, I mean, what should he say? But that's yet to be seen. I mean, you got Buster Douglas. He's a champion. They must beat Buster Douglas first before someone make that claim.
There's considerable talk, of course, that the September doubleheader that Arum and King referred to there, which would match Foreman and Tyson once again against a pair of opponents here, is designed by its scheduling to take the thunder away from the now signed heavyweight championship fight scheduled for September 20th at the Mirage between Buster Douglas, the champion, and Evander Holyfield, the #1 contender. What will the public be more interested in? Another Tyson-Foreman doubleheader, assuming that Mike gets past Henry Tillman tonight, or the heavyweight championship bout between Douglas and Holyfield?
I think the anticipation relies upon this fight tonight with Mike Tyson. What the intrigue is what's left for Mike Tyson. Does he have anything left? Is there a new Mike Tyson? that's the big question, Jim. I think people are not going to jump ahead until they see what Mike Tyson does tonight.
Of course, the quote from Seth Abraham, Vice President for Acquisition of Boxing Properties here at HBO Sports, is that we have right here in the persons of Tyson and Foreman, the only two heavyweights who sell tickets. Douglas and Holyfield are apparently going to get the chance to disprove that notion through some marketing of their own. This is a fight, nevertheless, which has attracted a great deal of attention, or at least this doubleheader has attracted a great deal of attention from the celebrities who often populate the boxing world. Billy Crystal here tonight. You see Michael Douglas sitting near the ring. And I saw earlier Jeff Goldblum and his wife Gina Davis, the Reverend Jesse Jackson, entered the ring environment tonight in the Tyson entourage and in the company of Don King. Chuck Norris, Jack Nicholson, a regular habitué of these fights, and surely it's got to make Tyson and Foreman feel good as aspiring champions rather than title holders to see all those folks here.
Well, the fact of the matter is, when these guys fight, it's an event, and that's why you have these celebrities turn out.
To continue the event, let's go back to Larry Merchant.
Gentlemen, now I'm surrounded by some prize fighters, some pretty good prize fighters. James Buster Douglas, the heavyweight champion of the world. Buster, give us your quick analysis of George Foreman. Do you think he's a real contender, or is he just some kind of a joke being put over the public?
No, I wouldn't say that he's a joke by no means. I think he's a worthy contender. You know, he's been out there for some 2 years now on his comeback trail, and he's been winning. Nobody has defeated him, so you would have to consider him as a contender.
If you were to fight Evander Holyfield in the fall and successfully defend your title, would you consider fighting him before you went back to Tyson?
No, those are not in my plans at the present time. My plans are to fight Evander, defend it against Evander, and then in turn give Tyson a rematch.
Now, you look a little bit beefier than you were in Tokyo. You haven't fought in 4 months. I don't know if you've been doing any gym work. How much do you weigh, and when do you start going back to the gym?
Well, I opened up gym officially in Columbus, Ohio, at Fitness Trend Health Spa the first Monday in June. But I'm right now, I'm carrying about 242 pounds, which is not too bad. And that's about my natural weight, you know, before a fight. So I figure around 15 pounds to take off to be prepared to fight in September.
Thank you very much, Buster. And now, Evander Holyfield. Evander, presumably you're going to fight this man in September, but first, you've made some news in the last day or so. You've announced that you're separating yourself from Ken Sanders, your manager who had been with you since your amateur days. What's that story about?
Well, I felt that it was a good business decision for me to go on without him, because I felt that he wasn't working in the best of my interests. So we departed in a good manner.
Will he share in your jackpot for fighting Douglas?
Yes, I feel that he deserved his share. He's been with me, and he have advised me well in the time.
Your quick assessment of George Foreman. You stopped Rodrigues in the second round also. What did you see out there? Do you consider him a real contender?
Yes, I do consider him as a contender. He's been out there. He fought 22 fights now. He won them all. He just fought Adilson. Rodrigues was the first top 10 opponent. He went out there and did it in good fashion. You can't take that from him.
Well, let me ask you the same question I asked Buster. If you should win the heavyweight championship in the fall, would you go after Foreman, who you might consider an easy opponent for a lot of money, before you defended against Tyson?
No, I would fight the #1 contender. I feel that Tyson's still the #1 contender, and he deserved a shot.
Thank you, Evander. Now to you, Jim.
Ahead to September 2nd, who do you favor in Douglas Holyfield?
Well, I think with Buster Douglas coming off that amazing win over Mike Tyson, he has the edge. He's bigger, he's stronger, and I'll give him the edge.
All right, that's another story, and we'll take care of that one in September. Meanwhile, on this night, we have finished with Chapter 1.